All right, let's begin.
Radsprecher was born in Brooklyn and remained in New York City to get her BFA and MFA in painting at Hunter College. Recently, she started to explore the stimulating world of Photoshop and digital art. Through this medium, Radsprecher paints different layers with speed, and in doing so is able to manipulate and render infinite variations of abstract figures. Each image contributes to a series that is both narrative and autobiographical, in exploring the first landscape we see in the world, the female body. Radsprecher has shown her distorted representations at many galleries, evoking feelings of confusion, wonder, and resonance with her audience. Her use of abstract shapes and colors only heightens the sense of mystery as to her artistic intentions, leaving the viewer to project their own meaning onto the work.
Deirdre Shan was raised by a family of artists. She studied graphic design and illustration at Parsons in the 70s and has used her design background to inform her work. By using stencils, Shan reveals intrinsic repetition both in the natural and the man-made world with recursive symbols. During this process, Shan used design systems like the golden ratio, 1-inch grids, and the rule of thirds to organize her motifs. She focuses on contrast to inform the composition of her pieces, using the variety to allow subjects to take on a life of their own.
Seema Singha Dua has been a sculptor for the past 15 years in India, where she developed her sculptural techniques and moved her focus towards the inner soul of each sculpture. She considers the aesthetic exterior of art a small part of a larger experience. Using the concepts of interior and exterior, Dua encourages her audience to contemplate the dichotomy of the physical and the cerebral, reality and imagination, and the exposed and the hidden. Using a variety of materials for her sculptures, the viewer is drawn in to contemplate the deeper meanings of each of the pieces with their own textures, forms, and colors. Yong Cho is a global artist whose work has been heavily informed by the experience of living through the brutality of the Guangzhou uprising. In that context, Cho uses his medium to take a critical look at social, political, and cultural structures that incur injustice and inequality. Working in video format, his work causes viewers to stop and think about the world we live in. Using light and shadow, he's able to mask and reveal the true realities of our shared society. Finally, his use of motion truly captures his audience and forces them to confront their society.
Jungun Park was raised by an architect father with the value of creating instilled at a young age. Park saw each home as a made object rather than something bought, which allowed him to recognize identity in each place he lived. With the belief that the things we make us more human, Park focuses on transportation as a way to look at ourselves. He critiques contemporary rapid industrialization and challenges his audience to examine how humans mediate between the inherent dangers and convenience of modern technology. Through his bright colors, expressive patterns, and fantastical beasts, Park creates a new world of transportation. Making these scenes fun and intriguing, he allows the viewer to more easily digest the complex relationship humans have with cars.
Rina Rama was born in Argentina and received her BFA at Taipei National University of Arts in Taiwan, where she currently works and resides. In her paintings, Rana manipulates the textures of oils across surfaces, toying with thicknesses and depths. Recently, she focused on creating strong, full colors from earthly pigments, and recently started experimenting with new natural materials, such as tree bark. Along with nature, she incorporates her poetry and memories into her pieces. Using these elements, Rana weaves a narrative that is deeply personal and rooted in movement and the intricacies of the natural world. Nyx Cevides focuses on light and its drama as a way of exploring and capturing time and space, with the ultimate goal of embedding passing moments into eternity. He takes inspiration from his own experiences, the experience of his relationships, the places he's lived, and the places he's traveled. In this way, his pieces are deeply intimate, invested in the relationships between people and their surroundings. His pieces are visions of a journey through life, calm but inescapably tense and shrouded in mystery. Cevides views every piece as an opportunity to seize a connection and join individuals' journeys throughout the expression of his works. Jamie Greenfield paints ecosystems that encompass nature, cosmology, and the connection between the inner mind and the outer world. The objects in her work seem to have a tenuous relationship to one another, yet they are anchored in a structured space. Some of these relationships are intentionally clear to viewer, while the others are left more ambiguous, like the result of a distant memory or a dream. Greenfield draws upon personal history in combination with observations of light and form to create her work. Often without a preconceived plan, she allows the piece to evolve and solidify during its creation. She views the moth as a potent metaphor, beautiful and dangerous. The brevity of its life, coupled with its incessant movement towards the light, appears to reflect the human existential dilemma.
Ogunlesi Paul Otunde has been in numerous art workshops, symposiums, and exhibitions, and has been a member of the Beyond Borders Artists Association of Nigeria since 2017. His work centers himself as an artist, encompassing a variety of his experiences and the environment around him. Seeing art as a universal language, Paul commits to creating understandable work that all viewers can connect to. His work in this exhibition is more expressive than his pieces shown in the past. As he paints near abstracted figures on the collage background, the final products are portraits of action, emotion, and chaos. He juxtaposes his concentrated layers of paint that make up his bright figures with more translucency of the background, allowing the words from the collage to seep through the space. This is seen most strategically in his work Mere Victims. In these pieces, he focuses on both the body and the face, embedding both with movement and individual personality. His variety also continues in his level of abstraction and the busyness of his spaces, executing a cohesive yet distinct body of work.
Patricia Hines seeks to capture ordinary people in their natural being as they react to self-revealing moments of life. Focusing on moments often too difficult for the eye and memory to capture, she creates a dynamic pivot point in her work. To achieve this dynamic, she takes action photographs of her subjects and transforms these images into montages. Using small brush strokes, she creates an expressive visuality and tempo that engages viewers in thought and forces them to examine how Hines' visual narratives are relevant to their lives. It's possible through this thought exercise, Hines is part of the viewer's artistic and holistic experience and natural impulse to interpret. Like a Rorschach test, her pieces are self-revealing in and onto themselves.
Fuentes creates fictitious illusions of pop culture that emphasize the malleability of image and personal identity, more specifically, the identity of nature and fame. In his works, Fuentes places popular media figures in new contexts that challenge, confront, and complicate the identity these figures have created for themselves. Exaggerated costumes, illusion, and the fictionalizing of history all combine to suggest that identity is ever-changing and never quite stagnant enough to grasp. Fuentes wants the fluidity of identity to result in narratives that differ as they propagate in the minds of viewers. In so doing, individual identity becomes impossible to achieve, wholly influenced by one's surroundings, time periods, fashion, and how each of those combine and live in the minds of others.
Deshpande captures the actions of people and objects around her in her dramatic representational paintings. Through a lens of realism, Deshpande focuses on light and shadow to heighten everyday scenes. Using chiaroscuro and soft, loose brushstrokes, Deshpande lends emotion to these snapshots of the ordinary. In the still lifes in this exhibition, Deshpande emphasizes the lively color of the plants by contrasting them against the dark shadows of the background. By painting similar objects through a variety of compositions, Deshpande creates a narrative of which to see these ephemeral subjects. She paints thoroughly the possibilities of floral still life in her own unique style, unearthing the quiet drama of these natural decorations.
Allison Lewis understands the expressive power of art and uses this to guide not only her own creations but her philanthropic works. As a student, Lewis found new ways for art to expand beyond poetry and collages. Interested in movement and forms, Lewis delved into the portrayal of the body, the mind, and the aura across media. Lewis is dedicated to helping others use art to channel their emotions and histories. She was integral to a program tasked with bringing art to the homeless and the mentally ill populations of New Brunswick, New Jersey.
Sharon Sez's works are love-filled odes to humanity, femininity, nature, and the energized subconscious. Her focus on nature was influenced by her 10 years of living in a forest. Sez paints in bright colors to create extravagantly busy compositions that commune humanity with the natural world. For Sez, nature is essential to the human experience, and the human experience is integral to art. In this vein, she uses the figure as a central motif in her work. With the human or human features as the focal point of the piece, they become a starting point for the viewer to comprehend her work, slowly introducing the floral and fauna interacting with and surrounding the figure.
Deep Fonda's pieces are bound by an intrinsic need to create works that are both deeply personal and original. They are inspired by her life experiences, memories, and her joyful soul. Her works convey a clear message of intimacy and connections not only to oneself, but to others and the world around us as well. Intimacy is not only found in the themes of her work, but also in her use of color. Her warm palettes are bright, largely focusing on light effects, creating a connection between the viewer, the work, and their sense of place. Along with her impactful use of color, she also embraces meaningful patterns, furthering her work's connection to the spiritual realm.
Michael Yacovino was an emerging local artist whose works have found their home nestled firmly at the juxtaposition between familiarity and ambiguity. His early work primarily emphasized figures or the abstraction of form, many of which focused on the nude art form and the relationship between light and shadows. As he progressed as an artist, so too did his artwork. He had several dalliances with fashion design before moving on to pursue portraitures and a vintage storybook art style. The story of Michael Yacovino's artistic career and his display for Alfa Art Gallery's Configured Personas, all media exhibition, is one that truly reflects the permanence and enduring nature of artistic expression. Nearly 2 decades ago, he passed away, a young, relatively undiscovered artist, taken far before his time. Nevertheless, his artwork preserved, to the point that it was miraculously discovered by our own artistic director, Galina Corteva, who was astonished by the artistic styling and technical prowess of the young artist. And in the year of 2020, Michael is displaying his work for audiences once again, to the excitement and appreciation of all of us here at Alfa Art Gallery. His story and his work truly embody the capabilities of art in whichever medium it may present itself, to evolve and metamorphosize in perpetuity.
So during this portion of the presentation, we're going to take it through our virtual Art Steps gallery exhibit that we've set up here. This has our virtual display of all the artists featured in Configured Personas. Feel free to tell me to pause, rewind, anything you want to say about the pieces. Any artist, feel free to chime in. We'd love to hear what you'd like to say about what motivated you on how to make these pieces, what went into the process itself, or anything you're trying to convey that maybe you may not have seen before after looking at it from an audience's point of view. To the audience, you can say anything as articulate or as emotional as you want, whatever it makes you feel when you see this piece. Go ahead and unmute yourself and say it. I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure many other people would as well. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and we'll start. I'll say one final thing just for, I know the staff on the call is aware, but for the guests that are joining us in attendance today, we will be recording this video and we will be pushing it to our various official social media platforms and on our website later on. So if you guys are not comfortable with having your videos on and recorded during these dialogues, then feel free to turn your videos off. However, I personally would appreciate it, and I'm sure many others would, if you guys would turn the videos on and just keep up that kind of human discourse a little bit more. So, I mean, we're living on computer screens right now, so we'll try to enjoy it the best that we can. With that being said, let's begin.
this Putin one is probably one of my favorites of this entire exhibit. It's just something you would not expect from Putin at all.
No, yeah, I like a lot of these works by Paul Fuentes. I really like the idea of taking a very well-known figure, some celebrity, some political figures, and just taking them out, abstracting that person and putting them in a different setting that you really wouldn't. I mean, Sun's Out, Fun's Out is really funny, and it's actually articulated beautifully as well. It kind of is a really cool. It's a really cool artistic styling to have, and he does it incredibly well. So I love seeing these pieces. My personal favorite is the one with the Hillary Clinton. I think that one is just not even for the message. I think that one's just very beautifully drawn. I really like it. I love the way that the light reflects off of Putin here too. I mean, that's a funny sentence to say, but I really do love the way that it reflects here. And of course, Paul, if you want to say anything as well about these pieces or what you were thinking when you went into them, like, we'd love to hear it, obviously.
Well, thanks for the kind words. It's nice to hear all this. I don't know why I'm drawn to this subject matter, except to say that it's probably largely because of my career in advertising. I guess it was always letting you behind the curtain to see what celebrities and famous people were about, that it just made me realize how malleable the whole thing was. I don't know if that's much of an explanation, but I greatly appreciate your kind words. And Putin and Hillary seem to be loved.
I think there's something, I don't know if the word is significant or shocking or entertaining, but there's something just avant-garde maybe about taking political figures and turning them into art pieces. I know that it's just something very interesting to me myself personally. I like seeing, it's something that you never expect, especially with the way that you portray them. And it's just really interesting to see. I mean, you mix pop culture and celebrities together as well, but I think the political figures, especially ones that are at the tail end of such heated debates with regards to Putin and Hillary in 2016, it's just really interesting to take them out of that setting and just kind of bring them into these abstractions of light and form and just beautiful settings that you probably wouldn't think about otherwise.
Well, thank you. And part of it is what I think I didn't want to make political statements. I actually did it as an assignment where I worked with, I just wanted the work to be done as best as I could do it and as truthfully and honestly as I could do it. And I didn't want to put any inflection of my own in painting. I just wanted people to make their own narratives up, because I think there's a lot of sarcastic comments and blatantly obvious comments. I really did want these to be nuanced, as crazy as it sounds. I don't know if they are. I mean, Putin in a Sun's Out, Guns Out t-shirt is not nuanced, but I based it on paintings of St. Francis of Assisi, and I did my best to 100% follow like a truthful course without being snarky.
Yeah, I think you did an incredible job.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was going to say the hands like really recall kind of like Renaissance paintings. And I think one of the things that's really interesting is how you create these compelling compositions that almost kind of make you forget who the people are. And they're these people that we put up on these like high pedestals, and it's able to kind of humanize them a little bit and make these people who seem to be almost unreachable more approachable as we can see them in these like different and interesting ways.
That's very nice. Thank you.
Continue the video for you guys. I love this piece. I don't know if it's not like if it displays that I'm not knowledgeable about art in some form, to say that it reminds me of like Basquiat or those like very surrealist, colorist pieces that kind of feel very, I don't know if the word is fleshy, or they feel very human. They feel very organic, despite being painted in abstraction and painted in the way that they are. I just love that. I love the title Fat Knee as well. I don't know. I just love the styling of this piece in particular. I love the way that the colors work together, and it gives that kind of natural, organic tone to the piece itself. Yeah, and I love the way that the colors play with the white background as well, and kind of pop and make you focus on them. And again, Carol, if you'd like to say anything about these pieces as well, feel
I
free.
was trying to unmute myself. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah, I mean, I have been a painter for many, many years, decades, and then I just, in quotes, discovered Photoshop, and I absolutely love it. And I taught myself basically the rudiments of it, but I love the freedom of it, and you know that you can, no storage worries, all kind of things. And I'm very pleased to be part of this exhibit. And I have to say, I'm very pleased that there was no shipping involved, as my, no need to go to the opening physically. So for me, I mean, I wish that we were back into a more normal situation, but I know that for me, this is perfect.
Yeah, we're making the best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're glad to have you here with us.
Thank you, and I'm so sorry about. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to know, will people be able to see the show? You know, afterwards.
So we've postponed the physical reception to accommodate to the new executive order signed into law by Governor Phil Murphy. Which is like 10 people at the exhibit. So obviously 10 people, that's essentially interns only, and then that's not really a reception. So we're letting it sit, and we're trying to do our best that way and see if that gets levied. We don't know what'll happen there. However, the Art Steps gallery that we have set up right now is going to be online, and it'll be publicized, and we'll drop a link to that so you guys can check it out. We'll put that on the website after the reception itself. So anyone can go in if you guys want to ruminate in depth individually. If you guys want to come down to the gallery and see it in person, feel free to do either. We have the gallery set up and your pieces on display for those featured artists that are displaying physically. And on the Art Steps, we have everyone's pieces up for you guys to check out and look at on your own time as well.
Thank you. And I have to get off. I'm really sorry.
No problem. I'm glad that you were here to talk about your own pieces.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for that. All right. Thank you. Thank you again for having me. And thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Bye, Carol.
Okay,
have a good day.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. You too.
It's a really beautiful piece.
Yeah, I agree. I like the way that she uses these paintings. It's like a completely different take on the still life flower portrait, as Stephanie Deshpande is, who we spoke about a little bit. We'll go into in more length when we get to her pieces. But I just love the juxtaposition between these two pieces. They focus a lot about floral imagery and about flowers and painting those, but the stylistic choices that they make completely different pieces. And I think it's so interesting. Like they could be painting the same type of flower and it look completely different. And I love that about just subjectivity in art.
I understand.
Oh, can rewind it for you. This piece.
Yeah,
Right?
it was by Untitled 5. Man, I love the colors in this piece. And there's a lot of colors working here, but they're used in a way that's not really, where none of them are really distracting. They're like, they almost like have the same type of hue, where it's not not bold. It's like all of them are like smooth. And it's
Yeah,
throughout the environment, throughout the background with the mountains, the trees, and even the two figures in the foreground.
Yeah, I think the color choices here are really interesting because while, as you said, there's a ton of colors here and her palette is immense, there are also a lot of commonalities between the colors. The way that she chose to do the people in blue, the mountain in blue, and the lower frame in blue. It kind of all fits the scene almost. It's all very different colors and but nothing pops out as the focus. Nothing pops out as like, you should be disregarding some other piece of this work. Everything seems important. Everything seems to mesh together to create an atmosphere and a kind of aestheticism that you take in as one entire piece. And I really like that. I also really like the articulation in the bottom left here. I don't know if that's like the veins of a leaf or water trickling or something of that matter, but I just love how it's drawn. I don't know. There's a lot of cool choices that go into a piece like this, like white and blue in general. I'd love if, or I wish that she had been able to join us for the call so she could talk about this in more depth. This is one of those pieces that are kind of interesting. There's kind of a little bit of a variation to the way she draws them too. There's a little bit of a curve or a slant that seems to be implicit in at least the furniture around them. And it kind of just draws you into the piece. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. I like it a lot. And I like that. I think you're definitely right. I think the colors really work together, and they not to turn a phrase and just say paint the picture, but they really do. That's how I feel. I really like it.
And I do agree about the articulation. Well, like in the lower left corner, which to me that seems most likely probably like veins of a leaf.
Yeah, that's
and that can also be seen like in the branches on the trees on the right.
Oh, that's true. There's kind of a sense of symmetry there, or I mean, diagonally, but there's kind of a sense of a shared theme on both sides. They're both natural and they're both painted in the same way. I didn't even realize that.
It's a shame Marina isn't here because when I interviewed her, she's like such a sweet woman and she's so well spoken. She's like from all these different places, and like it's funny that you say like there's a lot going on in the picture because she has a ton of different influences in her life. Like she was born in Argentina, she went to school in New York City, then she went to school in Taiwan. She speaks like 5 languages. She's like a genius, and you can tell just by the way that she speaks. So she said she's influenced a lot like by like Japanese wood prints, but also like Spanish art, American art. She has like a lot going on. So I think it's interesting that you kind of said that because you can kind of see that come out in this piece.
Yeah, you can the Japanese wood prints, like the sharp diagonals. You can once you say that like really brings that to my mind. And I think another influence I kind of see, it reminds me of like Fauvism, and specifically kind of this like disorientation of like color, as well as like in her own compositions, in the way that she kind of stacks and layers these objects on top of each other. It's a really interesting way, especially with her still lifes, to kind of approach something that is usually so kind of ordinary.
Right.
I didn't even realize that. I don't even know what Fauvism is. So that was an incredible take, and I'm glad to hear it.
I really love just like the shadow in this image. It just makes it like the shadows in general. Like it just feels kind of like I'm seeing it in essentially person. It's at like golden hour, and it's like it looks like we're actually just about to walk into like the boxing gym, or even just looking at it for like a glance. It's just the shadowing I just love the most.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely like photorealistic. It's beautiful. I think it kind of like, you know exactly how you feel when you're walking through and you look to the side and maybe the sun's setting and you're like, oh, like just a casual stroll, and that gives that exact feeling to you.
Yeah, I was gonna say that something like comforting about it, even though there's like so much going on. There's like something very calming, and I really love it.
I think he has an interesting way of providing the feeling of nostalgia without ever witnessing or being in this setting, or even knowing if this is a real setting at all. It's kind of interesting. It feels like very familiar as a scene, but I've never, gone to a boxing club. I've never I've never been to this exact area, but it feels like I have. It feels like I could just walk in. It feels like I could just walk by, look past it, and not think maybe it's the same boxing club I walk by and see every now and then, every day, every week. It feels just like that. It feels casual. I really like how he's articulated that.
I also just love like the orange and teal in general in all of his works, because you just get like the full contrast of the colors.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, I definitely agree with how photorealistic it is, because like the whole setting of it. It reminds me of spots like that in cities, like in New York City. Like I've been around there a few times, and I've seen built spots like that. Not exactly the same type of building, but that general same layout. I can imagine if it's a real place or not.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see, just because I'm assuming most of us on the call outside of the international artists are in like city or urban landscapes all the time, urban settings all the time. Like we live in New Jersey, tri-state area, so maybe it feels familiar to us, but it may not feel familiar to people from more rural areas or something like that. I think that's very I'd be interested to hear that take, is all I'm saying. Like, because we always seem to see that there's something nostalgic or something comforting here, but maybe it's the complete opposite for someone else from a different perspective. I think that'd be really cool to listen to. I just wanted to say, I'll say it quickly. I just wanted to say I love the way that he articulates shadow and light in this piece. I think it's incredible. I think it's super realistic. I think there's no part that you think, oh, maybe that's not too realistic, or maybe that doesn't really look like how it would in real life. I think the way you can almost imagine where the sun is headed and where the sun is facing from this one scene. I think it's done very beautifully.
Yeah, that's the most realistic shadow. The way the shadow is done, it's most realistic I've ever seen in a work like this.
I like it a lot. I really do. Anissa, what did you want to say?
I was just gonna say, I feel like it's interesting that it looks inviting, whereas like if you just like imagine the piece based on the title, this is definitely not what would come to mind. You wouldn't think like, oh, a boxing club. That sounds like a place where I'd like to hang out. That sounds like somewhere that's like nice and homey, but you see this and you kind of forget that that's what this is. So in like, while it's also like very beautiful and very it like reminiscent of something we may or may not know, it also feels like it's covering for something.
Yeah, there's kind of this implicit juxtaposition there that I didn't even consider that. But you're right. Yeah, taking the title into concern and then the actual subject matter, you wouldn't think of it as something that's warm and inviting, and yet that's how we all, or at least the people who have spoken, seem to feel. Again, with as you said before, I believe Robert, the use of orange in these pieces is, I mean, it stands out in this one. I think. I mean, it's the focal point here, but also, it looks great. I love how it looks. I mean, using it to work with. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse also, but work with like the trees in the background versus the poster, and then just right here in front in the forescape. It's just or in the foreground, it's just incredible. It's a cool way to keep a thematic like recurring imagery, just using color and different symbolism.
I like the way he narrows your view. He focuses your attention. It's all in a way like looking through a keyhole, looking down that narrow slot of buildings.
Yeah, definitely. And he keeps in line with that theme of urban settings and urban landscapes, and just it's the same type of setting, but he does different things with it. In one sense, we feel super homey, we feel super relaxed, super nostalgic. In this sense, we feel like we're peering into something, maybe something that it's not totally in our view, or something that's not totally in our focus, but we want to know what's there.
Also, what I like about the robot in the center, like it kind of gives off like this little bit of like a cyberpunk futuristic vibe, and yet we're essentially still in this like city, it's like modern urban city, and I don't know, I really appreciate that, and like that.
Yeah, there's that juxtaposition again with his pieces. There's that maybe it doesn't fit, and at the same time there's no questioning that it's there.
And I think it's really interesting because it's essentially just like a painting of another painting, because it's kind of supposed to be based off of this mural. And I feel like in urban landscapes, there's always a lot of art that's already in existence there. But whenever you see people painting that, they never really showcase that because they're trying to make their own art. So I like that it kind of like it approaches something that maybe isn't always being shown.
Yeah, definitely. I hadn't even considered that.
Yes, I think that's interesting. We're looking in, but others are looking out. Because look on the right side on the top, there's a cat looking out from the window, which I think is so interesting.
Yeah,
the cat is like on the top of the window on the right side of the painting.
Like right here.
Yeah. So he's looking out while we're looking in.
It kind of feels like there's a lot of different gazes in this piece. If you look at these two, like she's looking away, he may be even looking at that poster or just looking to the side. And then the cat, and if you take the poster as the focus, are both looking at us.
Right.
I think also,
very interesting.
Speaking a little bit more to like the cat and the idea of like urban landscape, I feel like that like keyhole thing that Paul had brought up almost acts as like the mirror or the window that's on either side of the buildings. Whereas like looking into the mirror would be like a very direct act of like voyeurism and invading someone's space. Then we're looking through this kind of keyhole and we're still looking at like a picture of a woman, whether it's real or not. It's kind of like this facade of voyeurism, or like a want or fulfilling that need in some way for a viewer. And then with the cat looking out, it reminds me of like Renaissance paintings when like cats and dogs at the feet of women would often indicate those women as like prostitutes or people who were available. So it gives me like a very like modern contemporary take on something like a Venus of Urbino.
It's really interesting. I'm glad you shared that. I had no idea.
Yeah, I agree with the voyeurism thing. I think that it reminds me of Rear Window in terms of the voyeurism, that we're looking in and they're looking out. That's interesting.
That's I love the Rear Window analogy.
Again, the cityscape, the tones of orange, it's just all recurring imagery in all these pieces, but completely different scenes. I didn't have a lot to say there. I just wanted to point it out again. And Deep, I know you were talking in the chat. I'm not sure if you can speak on any of your pieces now, but if you'd like to say anything in the chat and someone can read it out. I actually can't see the chat too much because I'm sharing, so it only pops up when they come up for me. But if anybody wants to share anything that she might have said, or if you want to say anything for someone to share out loud for the group, I'd wholeheartedly appreciate if you did so. I'd really be interested in hearing your takes and what motivated you on these pieces.
Well, the first one is the sunrise. And this I made after we visited Bali. And this was from my, the impact, those paddy fields, looking at them, what they had. It just stayed in my memory, and I just wanted to create a canvas with that. So the first one, and the sunrise, it's just falls all over the paddy fields. And so I was trying to do that just from whatever I had seen there from my travels. The second one is it's Beauty in Wilderness. It's from one of my hiking trips. And I had gone hiking, and the nature and everything, it just stayed with me. And this is how I have portrayed whatever feelings I had after my hiking trips. So it's peaceful, it's beautiful, it's calm, it gives you a sense of calm looking at these paintings. And that's what I try to portray whenever I want to paint. I want to give a sense of calmness when somebody's looking at these paintings. The next one is from my trip to Italy, Florence especially. And this is a visual from there, which I have captured on canvas I like using bright colors, because it really, it just makes the canvas full of life.
Yeah, you use them well. You use them well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, they say, memories fade, but art lives forever. And the memories that you're capturing here is definitely has undertones of serenity, and kind of like almost, at least with that first one, with the sun coming up, it's almost erupting past. And it just seems like a very calm, a very serene, a very uplifting situation, somewhere where you can just sit and there are those moments in life where you can just sit and you can look at where you are and you're like, wow, like sometimes you forget, but like this place that we live on is beautiful. This place that we live on is incredible. And
right. It just stays with you. Certain moments just stay with you.
Yeah.
And the next one is, it's from India, from state called Rajasthan. And it's actually a land of all the royals and from Maharajas. And so you see a lot of palaces there, and havelis, which are again royal households where they lived. So now some of them are just, they're not in best of shape, and passerbys just you stand there and you reflect on the glory of the past. And so this is one of them. You can see in the background there are all the ruins, and this is a beautiful part of a palace long gone. And she's passing by and just taking a breath while so during my travel to Rajasthan, I'd seen all this. So this is again out of what struck me, and I wanted to save it on a canvas.
Yeah, I think this piece specifically, there's that passage of time and that kind of memory motif that's here in spades. It's here twofold. It's one, a memory that you had yourself, and two, the memory of these royals, and this almost derelict ruins of their palaces and how they were once at the top of the world, but now
how they're deserted now. But so
it's both permanence and degradation in the same piece. I think that's incredible that you were able to articulate that.
Thank you.
Something that I think that's like really fascinating to me about about this piece in conversation with the one before it is that they could almost be like the same place, and I don't think we would know any better if we didn't pay like super close attention to the architecture, or if we didn't know what India looks like versus what Italy looks like, because like the palette is so incredibly similar, and I feel like that tells us a lot about how like our own backgrounds, our own personal experiences, the way we grow up and what we grow up around really like permanently impacts the things that we create and the things and how we analyze the things that have been created. And so I feel like you could look at these images and know where you are, but you could also look at them and think like that could be like my hometown, that could be the city next to me. And that kind of makes every kind of architectural space worthy of being monumental, which I think is really lovely.
Yeah, definitely. There's also a sense of like the similar color tones used kind of evoke the same emotions. And in your memory, you talk about how it's like peaceful, it's calming to see these places, and despite being completely different places in completely different areas of the world, you evoke that same emotion, and then you capture that emotion and you paint it for all of us. I think that's really cool.
Hello, on the sunrise one, I'd like to make a comment about the sunrise because I feel that it is all about life. And it's the sun enveloping us as human beings and empowering us as human beings to live a life. It's a beautiful painting.
I love that. I love that take. I love that take on this piece because yeah, it's really just bursting out, enveloping. It's a perfect way to describe it.
It's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
I have a different take on the sunrise because I thought at first the sunrise was a breast because I see like the nipple at the end. No, that was the kind of image that came to me. It's a little different from everybody else's take. And I guess the artist.
That's a really good take. Regardless, however, it still ties into that motif of life and giving life and kind of a new dawn. It's kind of that's very interesting. I hadn't seen that before, but now I definitely see that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. If I can make a comment on the beauty of wilderness.
Yeah, of course.
Beauty in wilderness. Yeah, I had to. Yeah, I think I do see the how as a calming atmosphere, and like I see the scenes with like the greenery, the trees, and like the gray mist that's at the furthest of the background, which could be a lake. I think since I was in a lake, I could see that. I could definitely tell there's a lot of. You definitely get the sense of appreciation for nature, and I think how like the entirety of the environment shown was like captured very brilliantly. And saying everything here is composed really beautifully.
Yeah, definitely. I personally, I love the way that you articulated the water here in the foreground at the bottom. It's just very, in the same way that you give the sense of calmness with your color tones, you do so with the places and the settings that you paint. I mean, there's almost like there's a few ripples, but there's no thrashing about. There's no human interaction whatsoever. It's just the trees, the water, the lake in the back, and you're just taking it all in. I think that's very,
it's just a landscape. That's it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I always love that aspect in landscape pictures, or in landscape works in general.
I believe we were. I'll start us off from Haveli. I think this is like, I think of the pieces displayed by you, this is my favorite. And I have no deep comment to say about it or why I feel that way or what it makes me feel.
I think it's just because it's just so bright and the colors really come out, and it shows the bond between these women together. That's what I'm trying to depict.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love the colors used here. I think this is probably the the most different use of color that you've done so far in the pieces that we've displayed here. And I think it really, really juxtaposed with the other pieces makes this one pop. It calls your attention. I think maybe I'm too face value, maybe I'm too enraptured by aestheticism, but I just really love the way that you've articulated this. I really love the way that these are drawn, the way that the fabric looks, the way that it's all it's like popping and it's also kind of muted at the same time. I really, really enjoy that, especially how you went with the two different fabrics underneath as well. I love the little designs, the little details that you put into it. It's really a complex work for something that seems to cover such a smaller setting than your other pieces.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah, I love it too. I think it's beautiful. I think it's so representational of the culture. It's so pretty. It's so feminine. I just love that painting.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah, I have to say the colors, like all the colors that are shown brightly are what get me the most. And in all three figures, and to me it seems like all the major colors are shown in these three figures. The middle one has, I see, like all the colors. I see red and orange in the center figure. The rightmost figure I see mainly green, but at the bottom there's a little yellow, and then on the left figure it's mostly blue, but there's like some hints of like indigo or violet, but the majority is blue. But I still that seems like all the major colors are used. All major colors are presented here.
Yeah,
I just find that really astounding.
I mean, moving on from what you said here, like, yeah, it's interesting that looking at the piece itself, you can tell that they're connected. You can tell that they are representations of the same concept. However, they look so different. They pop in different ways. They have completely different color tones, and yet there's no doubt in our minds that they are representative of the same thing and that they are connected and they are interconnected with each other. And I really love how you were able to display that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry. I think there's something to be said about Deirdre Shan's work in the same discourse that we had about similar color motifs and similar color palettes used throughout her submissions, at least, but also for this display. Each of these pieces seem to share the same tones and they feel like they're colors that usually would pop, but put together they're very muted and they feel very comfortable is the word I think I'm looking for. I'm not completely sure, but I think familiar, comfortable. It's just a scene. It feels like something out of your own home, and the colors really serve that purpose as well. It's just they don't really draw your attention away from the scene. They kind of just exist, and I really love that. I love that it's subtle, but also articulated well, and it's very stylistic. And I love that as well. It's kind of a regular scene at a home, but done in a completely different stylistic take.
Yeah, I have to say this still life has, and a still life communicates its concept it has a unique way of communicating its concept. Like with the title of Two Pairs, at first I would think of like just showing two pairs, but this one actually does it in a slightly different way, because it shows because it has two halves of a single pair, but one shows the traditional outside, and the other one shows the inside of the pair. Even if but for all we know, it could be just two pairs just cut in half, or what I'm getting at is they could be two halves of the same pair.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about kind of when a piece makes you think about complexity in the simple or complexity in something that is ostensibly seems simple. If she calls it two pairs, then you could see it as, yeah, two different pairs, just sliced, and now they're the pairs of the same pair. And then there's the two pairs of the bowl and the cup as well. I think there's a focus here. There's a symmetry there. That's kind of interesting to me.
There's something about the colors and still life, kind of reminiscent, I think, of Cézanne.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think that I saw that, and also some elements of cubism where she's flattening the surface and turning what would be volumetric into just kind of a very interesting design and composition. And she's very good at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's recurring in all of her pieces here too, at least the ones we can see as well.
I really like what Joshua had brought up about like almost like interiority that you can see from like, is it a part of one pair? Is it actually two separate pairs? And this isn't exactly about necessarily this piece, but I love that she focuses like on still lives and on natural elements like fruits and you know leaves, just whatever is occurring in the natural environment, but it's also interior in the home because it's like nature, but it's indoors, so it's kind of almost like this like calming domesticity that occurs with nature and also combats nature. And something that it brings, that this piece in particular reminded me of, is this piece called Les Poires by Philippon. And it was like this caricature of the king. And in French, pears have this alternate meaning. If you passe moi les poires, it's like you're like an imbecile, you know? And so I think it's really interesting to see like just culturally how different and cross-culturally and also across, you know, 100-something years, how different we can look at the same, essentially what is the same image, and interpret one as like a criticism of government and then another one as like, this is home to me, or this is an exposition, all in the same sort of motif.
That was an incredible take. I don't have anything to work off of there because I don't know French or any of the history, but that was an incredible take, and I'm glad you shared it.
So something that I feel like I noticed with kind of these past three pieces that I think is really interesting is the focal point of the fruit, not just by the fact that, you know, it's these kind of like circular objects with an obvious like center, but they're like amongst all of these very sharp geographical elements. And like her use of stencils, I think, is also very interesting because there's this handmade quality to it, because you can tell that these stencils are kind of like hand printed, but yet they're still kind of like this automatic way of producing. And so I think it's really interesting because the fruits really stand out to me because they're made to look extra naturalistic, because, you know, they're not kind of created in the same stencilized way as the background. And so they're more organic and less geometricized and kind of look like they are kind of their own object placed into the scene.
Yeah, I definitely see that. Everything is kind of very cubic, very rectangular. Even with the lighting on the third one, it's just split straight down, so you focus on the pair. It's the only thing above, and it's the only thing light there.
I'm just going to give an offbeat comment about the pears. I think they're very sensuous. They're very sexy. Sorry. I think it's all about sex, these two paintings.
Yeah, I kind of see the juxtaposition with the pears, because they look like when you have something, you slice a pear or an apple, and you let it sit there for a while. It looks like it's been, you know, it's not fresh anymore. It's like between the pears, they look like they're really fresh, but they've been sitting there for a while.
And you know, I noticed like I think the two pair paintings may be related because you have like one pair in the first painting being cut in half, and so then you have this other pair painting called My Better Half. So I don't know if that was intentional, but I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
That's the one thing I think Deidre
That
Shan
is
is really
funny.
good with puns.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
just it's interesting to hear all of your comments because primarily I am just very interested in textures against a very flat, hard edge area, which is usually the stencils and the different patterns. And it's also interesting to hear you talk about the palette being so similar from painting to painting. And that is something I'm really trying to break out of. I just always resort back to those colors, but be that as it may. Anyway, it's been interesting to hear your comments. Thank you.
Well, I will say I think this last piece here really comes apart from that mold of those color palettes that were kind of similar. I mean, even this second and last piece here is a little less muted, a little more different in the choices that you make here. But this one specifically, if I can get to the title of it. Yeah, the My Better Half is just, I mean, it pops. It really, I mean, we say muted and we say that they feel a little bit different, like a little bit more casual. This one literally, for me at least, subjectively pops. It really comes and it grabs your attention. And not even just the pair, but also the table under it. I love the way that you designed it. It feels almost like a clothing print or like a kiwi or something. I really love the way that you've drawn it. It's really out of the norm versus the other pieces before seemed like they were meshed into the norm, and I really love the way that you can do both.
Yeah, the colors are really striking to me as well, and not just from how the My Better Half thing, it almost ties into the observation I made on the previous pair piece, but I see like the whole picture is almost like divided into two halves. Like the half where the pair is on, the background is just gray, where compared to the bottom half where that's where all the color is.
Mm-hmm.
And that almost seems to relate to I don't know if that even relates to the concept of the title, but that seems like also an interesting takeaway from it.
Definitely.
I have a question for you if you like feel like you can answer it, but specifically something that I noticed when looking through your statement and different things was your focus on repetition, and I was wondering if you ever really got into how stencils just as a process themselves are like inherently repetitive, and how has that influenced their use in your work?
Yeah, I'm not sure I heard all of your question. The stencils, I make myself from drawings, or I use a little machine called a portrait. I think that's what it's called, and it's a software program. But in terms of the repetition, it's more about, for me, it's more about the patterns and the different textures than the repetition. The two small paintings at the end, and forgive me if I'm not answering your question, but I'm very hard of hearing, especially on platforms like this. But the two small paintings are the last the most recent paintings I've done. And I tried to get away from the stencils or make less of them. And I just, I start off just with a simple idea. And I had this idea of things sort of balancing on top of something. Nothing more concrete than that. And I'm working on a painting right now of a bunch of pebbles. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do on top, what's going to be at the end on top of the pebble. But that is sort of how I have been working for the last year or so, is using the stencils and creating, just the patterns and this strong design, the design is very important to me. Those two things I think are what's foremost when I'm doing a painting. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that was really interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, I think with Patricia Hines, with your work, I think, and we spoke about this during the summer of COVID-19 when we did that first online exhibition as well. This motif of shared.
I remember you now.
Yeah, I got new glasses. I got a little bit longer hair. I don't go to barber shops now because of the whole pandemic. Yeah, we spoke about this kind of human connection, interconnectivity, and that theme of like people losing touch and people becoming more desensitized to contact and the people around them, their own relationships, and how people now have trouble maybe articulating that, and how it really just all comes to the forefront when you bring in things like, I mean, we're doing this all via Zoom, right? Like we're all talking through screens now. We're doing the best we can, but you turn off a camera and then it's a little bit different, and it's kind of interesting that you continue this motif with these new pieces as well. I just wanted to ask, what is your motivation in this piece by Memories? Is she watching her? Are they in a cave? Is she figurative? Is she an illusion? Is she a memory?
This is not Memories. Memories is the one of the man and the woman, the vertical one.
Oh, no. It's my apology. Then I apologize.
Yeah. Sorry. Memories is the young couple walking together. I guess I've always been interested in relationships, and my work is really about relationships and people and conclusions I've come to, or thoughts that I have about people, about situations I've been in, situations I've seen people being in. And I sort of juxtapose a lot about life. And this particular painting, it's about the relationship between a man and a woman, and about the quest between the two people, and what people expect from each other, or what people hope from each other, or what they are afraid of, or what they're not afraid of. And just this constant, I would say, this passion in between the two people. There's like a tension there in the center, the fire, the coming up in the background. What's holding them apart, but what's drawing them together. There's a lot of mystery there, and a lot of tension, and a lot of anxiety.
Definitely.
And but yet but there's a pursuit. It's a constant pursuit. It's the man after the woman after the man, or the hard to get, the not hard to get. The old lifelong story about two people getting together or not getting together. It's about a relationship about to start, a relationship ending. A lot of this has to do with what people bring to the painting and how they react to it. It's you could say, is she concerned? Is she apprehensive? Yet he's still pursuing. He's constantly pursuing.
Yeah, I love that. I love I mean, relationships are never stagnant, no matter how happy or how sad they may be or what
They're
phase
not.
of that relationship they are. There are always moving parts involved. There's always different feelings. There's different, I mean, you grow together, you stay in a relationship for 5 years, you're two completely different people. Whether you grew together or grew apart is up to the two people in question.
Well,
But
that's
it's
it.
never the same. Yeah, and I
Well,
love that.
here he is trying to climb up the mountain. You climb the mountain. What do you get to the top of the mountain? Sometimes you don't like what you get to the top of the mountain. Sometimes you like it. You don't know.
Yeah. And I do apologize about the title issue. We'll definitely fix that before
No, this is the quest. The memories one is about I guess it's about the love of your life and you're young. When you're young and you're full of romance and everything is wonderful and everything is just rosy until yeah, there it is. Everything is full of hope and promise. And you know, when you're in a relationship for a long time, and sometimes you get into the rough passages and the rough roads, you think back about those moments, the moments that got you together, the moments that make you happy, the moments that get you on that path together. And it's a beautiful moment. And so this is a lovely memory. The memory of that instant where all of a sudden two people click and they click for life.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting that it seems like the background here, I mean, there's the sky and the platform that they're walking on, but color wise, it seems like it's almost a setting that doesn't exist. It's just the two people put together and what they're feeling in that moment. That's how we feel about memories as well. We look back and we can't remember, it's a little hazy. We don't remember the settings too much, but remember the people, we remember how we felt. And I think that's really well articulated here.
And unfortunately, this image here is a bit pale because the colors are far more intense. The sky is a deep blue, and it's like a washed out version of what it is. But well, maybe it's a faded memory because it's washed out. I don't know. And the next one is my take on the art world, and it's comedic. You know, it's the art opening lecture is its title. And if you look on the bottom, there's a little wine glass there, or champagne glass. And here the professor is supposed to be interested, but he's really on his cell phone. And here someone's giving a lecture, a young person is giving a lecture, is full of the painting and everything. And the exuberance of the moment and the indifference of the moment.
Yeah.
Unlike this lecture, this opening, I should say, I find this opening far better than regular openings because I've learned so much and I feel it's an empowering opening hearing everyone talk about their work. So I congratulate you on doing it.
Thank you to everyone on the call. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Thank you to everyone who wasn't able to make the call, but did so much work on the art steps, on the videos, recording, audio, anything like that. You see a few of them on the call right now who spoke in that video before, but I'd like to thank everyone again for all the work that they've done. I think it really came out. I think we do better and better every time we host them.
Yeah.
I think it really came out well. And I'm glad that you've been here for two of them. I'm glad you've chosen to display with us once again.
This is a great moment in the gallery's history.
Keep going. And if you'd like to talk about, I know that's the true self. I don't know why the title didn't come up there for that video, but if you'd like to talk about that piece as well, because I was really interested in the way that you framed this one as kind of like smoky and kind of looking into a reflection, but it's the only focal point there is just him and his perception of himself.
Well, I was raised with the saying, if you do the right thing, you can always look yourself in the mirror. And every morning you can look yourself in the mirror and you can say, okay, fine, I did the right thing. I'm happy with myself. But that's a nice cliche. And as I've gotten older, I've started to think about what is the true self? Are you being honest to yourself? Is there a mirror? If you look at yourself as who you are, can you live with yourself? Can you live with what you've done? Can you live with life?
Can you live with who's staring back at you? Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
can you live with yourself? And you know, at first when I was doing the painting, I was going to, the background is all you know, a raw umber. I was just going to have a simple background, but then as the painting was almost finished, I said something's missing, and I said no, it has to change. And I gave a lot of thought to the smoke, and it took me, I can't tell you how long it took me to do the smoke.
Yeah, it looks like it took a while. Really
It was hot. It was layer upon layer and on, you know, wiping off, putting back on and everything. But I felt that, you know, coming out of the smoke is like coming out of the darkness, coming out of yourself into who you are. Can you really face who you are as a human being and what you've done in life and where you've been in life and where you're going in life?
Yeah, I think that that obviously that phrase about living with the person that you see, your reflection, be able to look at yourself. I think there are moments like that that are moments of recognition and moments of realization about who you are and maybe who you were and who you're going to be, depending on how you behave from now on. And I think coming out of that smoke is a cool way to articulate kind of coming out of that darkness and coming out of that haze of not really self-reflecting, not really considering things, and then maybe you do something crazy, maybe you do something really kind, and you look in the mirror and you're like, whoa, like I feel like I'm not who I thought I was before, or I feel like maybe I was not as reflective as I should have been in some sense. I mean, in this picture here, he seems kind of pensive and very much like he doesn't like the way that he's seeing himself in the mirror here. He's coming out of a haze of maybe he was doing things that he didn't really think about or really put too much contemplation into. He gets to the point where he has to look himself in the face again. He's like, I don't feel like that's the same person I was looking at even like days ago.
It's about being honest to yourself. It's very hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, going off of that part about like looking, confronting yourself, it almost seems like, you know, actually I have like another thought about it. Like like that person is looking at himself from an outside. Like if you're looking at yourself from an outsider's from an outside perspective, like the perspective that everyone else sees you, that everyone else sees you as, because like internally you would be just you think of yourself as greater than what other people say about and say what they see in you. But then when you take the time to look in the mirror, you're basically seeing the same thing as the other, seeing the way the other people seeing the way the outside people see you as. It's like you're gaining more perspective on what you appear, on how you appear to other people. And now you know what you're really like.
Yeah, I think it's touching on that. I think it's really hard to remain objective with yourself, no matter who you are as a person. Maybe you think of yourself as better than what other people look down upon you as, or maybe you think of yourself as a little more self-depreciative. But at the end of the day, it's really just, there's always subjectivity in the way that people have opinions about you and the way that you always have opinions about yourself. I mean, there's no person in the world that doesn't have insecurities, and there's no person in the world that doesn't live with regrets. But I think trying to find that objectivity, and maybe it's moral objectivity, maybe it's personal objectivity, whatever you want to see it as, it's really hard to obtain. But once you do that, you learn something about yourself that you might not have seen before. And it's definitely something that you wouldn't have gotten from other people's perspectives of you.
That's true.
Yeah,
It's true.
Exactly.
You know, my late husband he was very strong-willed person. He was he died when he was almost 90. But in his later years, he would always say, I'm like a little boy. When I was like a little boy, he could always envision himself one way, but the world envisioned him very, very differently. Very, very differently. A very determined, strong-willed person. And he always felt like small, fragile little boy. So it's like being true to yourself is very hard. It's very difficult.
Yes, especially if it seems to go counter to what people may think of you.
Yes, yes.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. I'm glad that you did.
Yeah. So it comes out of a lot of pain, this painting.
I'm glad you made it. I'm glad that you're able to share it with us.
Thank you.
Ogunlesi, could I ask you some questions about these pieces just a bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I feel like, at least thematically, they remind me a lot of the I believe it was called the Spirit Dance from before that you have presented with us before. I'm also very interested in just how you do this, man. It looks crazy. I love it. It looks so good, and it looks like it takes like days upon days, maybe weeks to make these. Like I'd really be interested in your process and like where you're coming from with these pieces specifically.
Yeah. As per difference with what I've shown before in the gallery and what I'm showing now, it's not like a transition or any sort. It's just like another body of work I produce, and I just felt like, okay, let me also put this in and see what comes out. So that's what led to me showing out these ones. And the process for me on these are kind of more spiritual. Like it's beyond me just using my head. So I feel a bit more connected to my subconscious while creating something like this.
Yeah, I think that's definitely articulated well. I think that's definitely displayed in your pieces. I think if you tried to think out all these pieces, they wouldn't come out nearly as beautifully if you just felt as you were making them.
Thank you.
And I just have to say too, I was at the gallery today and I saw these in person and I thought that they were absolutely amazing. So I love them.
Thank you so much, Tina.
Yeah, I really like the masquerades. I like how they complement each other. Specifically, like my eye is drawn towards the face of the one on the left and towards like the hoop around the one on the right. And so there's this like action that's enforced through like the focus on the body with the one on the right, but then this individuality with the one on the left. And I wanted to know, are they supposed to be the same figure, or are they supposed to be kind of like two figures in like the same setting?
They're actually two different masquerades. So what happened is there is the masquerade in another state of the eastern part of Nigeria, and there is another masquerade that looks like that in another part of the eastern Nigeria, because the eastern part of Nigeria has like 6 states under it. So going through the eastern parts, I couldn't really see like a picture, a realistic picture of what those masquerades look like. So what I'm left with is the memory of how they dance. So I just try to like document that through these pieces, and that's what led to it. So they are just like an idealistic painting of what the eastern part of Nigerian masquerade look like. So when I saw that they are looking like one another in the realistic form, like maybe they are one masquerade, I just allow them be.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, there's energy in these pieces. You know, they're very frenetic. They're very or kinetic is the word I'm looking for. They're very, you can tell that they're moving and they're dancing. And I think the way that you choose to use color in these pieces, and the way that you choose to where you choose to articulate the most detail, and where you choose to let it kind of go free form and get a little looser and splot the paint and just show the energy and show the passion there. I really love that. It's exciting to look at and exciting to see in art.
Thank you, Jordan.
No problem.
I'd like to say something. I think the brushwork is magnificent. They're very intense. And the intensity of the brush strokes makes them dynamic.
Definitely.
Oh, thank you.
I adore this piece. I love this piece. Like this, I don't even know why. I don't know. It feels raw. It feels kind of visceral. It feels very abstract and also very poignant and very pointed at the same time in like certain places. Very, very well articulated, and then an amalgam in others. I really love this. I always find like a few pieces that stand out to me just subjectively, and it's no offense to any other artists. I love everyone's works, and I think everyone is way more talented than I could ever aspire to be. But this piece in particular, I think really stands out to me. I love the way that you did this one.
This piece is also one of my favorites in the show. I really like busy work, like busy art, because I think whenever it's done successfully, it just leaves a lot more for your eyes to kind of sort through and for you to process. And I think the emotion of the face kind of hidden within these expressive brushstrokes just really gives a lot of overwhelming emotion when I'm looking at the piece. So I think it's done just very successful.
Thanks.
Yeah, I definitely get a sense of abstractness and rawness in this whole composition. Yeah, especially with as Allison said, the face hidden within, and just from the way the facial features are positioned, it does like seem to show like raw like emotion, like, and by extension that would be like raw emotion, which kind of ties into which kind of lends itself to as relating to the title, Never Succumb. And like in whatever situations where you're like never succumbing to oppression, there's almost expected there will be raw emotions behind that action.
Yeah, I think above all else, this piece it conveys perseverance. It conveys, I mean, the title says it alone, but like I love, for example, I love the way you use reds in the face here. The use of red throughout the piece is incredible, but the red highlights on the face, it really, I don't know, for some reason it feels like this person has determination above like what should be like a humanly possible. It seems like you could take the abstraction and the amalgam of the colors and everything going around kind of hectically around them to be like the events in their life or the things going on outside of them, but in their own head and in their own mind, they're clear, they're concise, they're articulated. They're like, I'm not going to lose to this. I'm not going to give up to this. I'm just going to continue, and I'm going to grit. I'm going to be determined, be stubborn. I don't know. It's really an emotional piece, but also really hard to articulate at the same time.
Thank you so much, Jordan.
No problem.
No problem.
I really like this piece as well. I really like the way that they drew just the woman, just the way that she's articulated, the way that she's drawn here. She feels almost cartoonish, but also abstract. She feels like she's part of the setting, but also the foreground. She feels like she's the muse, the focal point, and this, that, and the third. But also she is blending in with everything around her. I really enjoy this piece. I don't know why there's the mirror in the back, but it's so interesting to me. I don't know if they're grapes or leaves, but I love that they're there. I don't know. Everything fits so well while also being so unique at the same time. So dissimilar to one another, yet so well intertwined with one another. If that makes any sense. If I'm not just if I don't sound like I'm just saying gibberish, but that's how it makes me feel when I see this piece. I really do like it. It also feels like very fall, very seasons passing, very the leaves falling, very much like, even with the choice to not use too much color, to be more muted and use only color on the natural instances around her, I think kind of give way to a changing tide, or changing, like a seasonal change, something along that line. Or at least that's just how I took it.
Yeah, as do I. Yeah, I feel like the concept that the title tells us is communicated here pretty interestingly. Because when I saw the title shapes, the most immediate shapes that you could see are outlined in dark lines. Seeing like the thing at the lower right corner and the mirror, as well as all the, what I presume, branches. Yeah, but doesn't put focus on just the shapes that are well defined. There's also seems to be emphasis on shapes that are more opaque, I would say, and that's mostly seen in the female figure, where you can see most of her features, but the outline of her is, there's like a slight line. There are lines that define her figure, but they're more opaque and not as defined as the lines in the other shapes. And most of the figure is dominated by these soft shapes, these shapes of gray, and that don't have a dark line on their outside. And so it's almost like a more soft toned shape up against hard toned shapes. If that makes any sense.
Definitely. Yeah, I think I think it's definitely purposeful, the way that this, I mean, just look at the way that her arm like holds prominence over that last branch right here, and the difference in the shading here, and the difference in like the hard defined lines here versus the soft subtlety of the frame of the woman itself. And I think if you take the title shapes to mean anything, I think the juxtaposition between the shapes that make up her and the shapes around her are very particular. I think it feels, while it seems to be a scene that's almost a foray of different things going on, almost very chaotic in a sense, it feels at the same time very particular. It feels very much knowledgeable in that she put these things where she wanted to put them for a reason, and at the same time, I have no idea what that reason might be.
Jordan, I want to ask you a question, because you said you thought this looked a little cartoonish, and that's the immediate reaction I had too. Now, the face in the mirror, to me, looks like the spirit from Spirited Away. That's like the cartoon image I have in my head.
Oh, you know what's funny? I was thinking, I definitely see that too, the no face guy. I was thinking, for some reason, I don't know why, the face of the woman herself, not even in the mirror, reminds me of like Coraline, or like
that's exactly what I was gonna say. Yep,
yeah,
that's what I was feeling too.
It's like, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, but yeah, no, not to say, and I would hate for anyone to misinterpret as cartoonish to be something like less articulate. Because I've been singing the praises of this piece right now. Like I really, really like it. I think outside of cartoonish, maybe a better word would be more characterized. Maybe like more
That's a good way to describe it.
more ambiguous or
like
more surreal.
Maybe ambiguous yet stylized.
Yeah, stylized. Yeah. Sorry, we went on a tangent about. Sorry, we'll move on.
Wait, Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
Can we go to the piece right before that one?
Yeah, right here.
I really, really like this one. It reminds me of like when like the X-ray was invented. So when like Willem Röntgen invented the X-ray, the first ever images of the X-ray were used by women as gifts to their husbands, of like their hands with their engagement rings on them. And so it's this kind of like thing of like ownership and gifting the self. And I wonder if like, because this reminds me very much of an X-ray or very much of like anatomy, and like a lot of like medical art specifically of women. So to me, when I see this, whether it's like true or intentional or not, I kind of see it as like this kind of like medical art and how women are like depicted in medical art, kind of taking like ownership of the self again. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I mean, I don't know too much about medical art, but I studied anatomy for a while. I think it's very similar too. And I think that looking at it as like an early pseudo X-ray is really interesting too. I definitely see that as well. I'll be honest, when I look at this piece, I'm drawn to the little dude in the back. I don't know if he's an ostrich or a deer. I don't know what he is, but he's charming. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I'm just trying to like all the lines that are inside the figure of the woman. It just reminds me of like the like veins and the actual muscle layer of the human body. Yeah, since like making images where like it just shows the musculatory system or something. I think the musculatory system is, you can see like the inner veins of the actual muscles, and most of it's like red and little in that kind of off-white, and like the lines here remind me of like the veins you would see in that type of picture.
Yeah.
So once again, my point does relate back to the whole theme of medical art.
Yeah, it's very anatomical. It's very
anatomical.
Easily seen. And what's interesting to me is that when I first looked at this piece, I didn't even see that. I thought maybe it was like something painted over or something like that. And then you guys bring up the X-ray, the vascular system, the musculature that you can see, kind of the flesh and bone and the veins that are going through. And I really definitely agree. I think that I don't even look at it as paint anymore. It's not paint like painting, but paint isn't like paint over the person. I think it definitely seems more like look inside this person. I like the way that all the lines are very interconnected as well. It feels like one singular focus on who this person is and what makes them tick and what makes them who they are. I think she looks very somber as well. Like she's, I don't know, she's just taking it all in, and it's very interesting. It feels almost like there are these little things in the back that almost don't matter because there's so much happening with her, and there's so much to focus on as in the foreground with the woman that you kind of I didn't even realize there was a kid doing the kite in the back for a while. It took me a little bit to look at that and see, oh, that's a dude flying a kite. So focused on the design of the woman itself. I know I said I was taken aback by the little dude on the right, but I just thought he looked cute. What really draws your eyes as a piece here is the woman itself. And I'd like to know, or I wish she could have told us about what her thoughts were on this piece and when she was making it, what went into her color choices for different things. Because You know, we all
Yeah.
see, we all, or at least the three of us were talking about seeing an anatomical take, X-ray take, a vision of musculature and the vascular system, and you think about it, and it's like, well, why didn't she choose to display that in the colors that they would have normally been in? I think it's interesting to see why she chose these colors. I'd really love to have heard about that as a perspective of hers, but I mean, we live in a Zoom era, so we make the best of what we can. At the end of the day, I'm just happy that we can see all these beautiful pieces and we can all talk about our own subjective takes on them. I'll play it. And I think Jamie mentioned that she had to leave the call earlier on during a different portion of the Art Steps gallery. But God, I wish she was here for me to just say that this is a beautiful, beautiful piece. This is so incredibly artistic. It's so
this is beautiful.
Very detailed. It's very much feels like it's in like I don't know, like a dreamscape or something. It feels like I don't know what any of these are outside of like the floral motifs and maybe like some feathers here and there, maybe roots or creatures, but I don't really know what this setting is, yet I'm captivated by it. I don't really know what I'm looking at, yet I can't look away. You know what I mean? There's like very, very muted color here. It's all tones of green, and shadowing and lighting, but she still manages to draw your eye immediately to the focal point she wants to set up with the bright whites against the darker kind of translucent grays and the shaded out areas there strewn throughout the piece. I think the way that she does color, I mean, and it definitely seems to be articulated with purpose in the way that she doesn't just shade around or just shade in certain places, but she actually shades like different focal areas, like here and there, like different parts of the pieces are actually, I don't know, it was very informal, but at the same time, very, very technically sound, I guess.
Yeah, I really enjoy how kind of the organic forms of everything just flow into each other. So it kind of consistently keeps your eye moving across the space. And I think having the moments of kind of like negative space at like the bottom left and at the top right and kind of in other parts throughout, I think that that really allows like the viewer's eye to kind of take a rest. And so I think that it's like a very strong composition to be able to have such immense detail, but not have it be overwhelming.
Definitely.
I definitely picked up on that type of visual direction. You know, because like how the negative space and the bits of charcoal that occupy the corners occupy actually each of the corners, not just the two that you mentioned, Emily. It's almost like that form of negative space kind of frames the whole, keeps that piece framed in, so that your eyes can have a spot where you can stop and take a rest. Yeah. I love this floral piece. This is probably the most detailed depiction of tulips in oil paint that I've ever seen.
I definitely like it a lot. I love, I mean, in the last three pieces, I just love the way that Jamie Greenfield uses shading, the way that she articulates different forms. I mean, you can kind of tell the way that this thing is swaying, the way that the tulips are swaying, the way that the daisies are swaying. I think maybe lilies, I wasn't actually looking at the title, I was just looking at the flower before. But yeah, the daylilies, I mixed them, put them together. They're super well articulated and super super surreal. They're super
Yeah.
shaded. Well, they give it form. I think in the shading that she does, it's very well done, and it gives every piece a little bit of form that wasn't there before. Especially when you take the juxtaposition between two just flowers that we know in everyday life, tulips, daylilies, to this strange universe, literally strange universe. We see the same technical prowess in all three pieces, despite widely different subject matter, and I think that's really interesting as well. I mean, you see the floral motifs here, and you see like you could take this as creatures, you could take this as roots, this, that, and the third, but they are similar in shape and structure. And the way that she delineates that is honestly incredible.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely see that. I definitely agree on that. And I'm just kind of taken away from how those previous two flowers have like all color, but then that just makes the piece A Strange Universe seem like the outlier between this set of pieces, because it's the only one that doesn't have color. It just has like gray, or you could say like it has a grayscale palette with just different shades of black, white, and various shades of gray, mixing an outlier among these pieces.
I think there's a slew of facets of that piece that make it seem like the outlier there in her submission, and I think that's definitely done purposefully by submitting these pieces all together. And she's like, and here's the strange universe, just completely on its own, just stand out. And I think the choice to go monochromatic, the choice to display a setting that maybe is hard to articulate, and the choice to keep this kind of running perpetual motion in the piece is really interesting as well, because there are things that we don't see in the other two, but yet we see the technique is similar. We see that these are definitely the same artists, but they're doing completely different things.
This one particular piece I really love. I don't know, it's just something about the fact that the main figure itself is a deer. There's just so much going on in this one, and I'd love to know like what the inspiration was behind this one.
Yeah, I would as well. I'm not sure.
I would have liked to know the inspiration behind this. Because like out of all the animals that are featured that can be seen, well, there's like a rabbit and there's some birds. Like seems the important animals are all the deer that populate the piece. And
go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like the deer are really well. The deer are really well represented here. And here, like both the young deer at the front and center, and behind all the male deers in the back occupy the rest of the space.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna point out. I think she focuses a lot on femininity in her work, so I think it's really interesting to have the doe be the focal point and have the buck kind of surround her, in the way that the antlers specifically like frame the deer, along with like kind of the circular halo type shape in the background. I think that that's really interesting way to kind of highlight femininity in nature.
Yeah, definitely. I love that take. I definitely see it. Yeah, they all frame her. Almost every facet articulated here. I mean, kind of frames that middle deer lady as the focal point here. I mean, the veil of birds surrounding her, all the other pieces either in her space or surrounding her space in the same way that she is illuminated by the moon behind her. And even the flowers up top frame her as like kind of like a bouquet coming down upon her. It's really interesting to see.
I love this painting mainly because I love dogs, and I honestly think this is just like doggy heaven. Like when I first saw this painting, I immediately like took a photo of it and sent it to my mom and sister, and it's like, yep, I can see the dogs going here. So I don't know. It just this just makes me like a little happy. It's just a bunch of dogs having fun in a nice happy field. So
What do you think of? I only say because I feel like when you say happy field, also I feel like there may be kind of a feeling of an ominous tone or an undertone here as well. Like kind of, I mean, you look at the difference between the left side tree and the right side tree. The branches here, one is very colorful, one has all these flowers blooming, and the other one's not. You know, the other one's barren. The other one, you look at the foliage on the mountains on the right versus the mountain on the left, and it feels like one, there's far more red on the left, but also it feels like there's far less green purposefully. It feels like, and she calls it coming storm. And even you see the clouds changing in the background to the background, and they kind of trail away from us, but you see that alteration on those clouds start to affect it. It seems like there is a storm coming, and I wonder if the dogs are blissfully unaware or if the dogs are about to run. I mean, it looks like the guy on the left is on his way, but he's a dog, so he could just be frolicking around, you know?
Yeah, I wonder if that is conveyed in like an underlying sense of mortality. I think tying back to like what Robert says, almost like a doggy heaven. It's almost seems like a morbid sense of mortality. It's like, with how like the difference between how the left side and the right side.
That's really
almost like a sense of coming, well, I'll say end.
Yeah. I definitely see that. I mean, forget the juxtaposition. You look at the flowers to the branch barren and then flowers, that's death right there. I mean, at least maybe it's not supposed to be as cut and paste as that, but yeah,
maybe not as cut and dry, but
it feels super like it's articulating mortality. And if you think about it even further, you think about what's probably most people's first experience of death, and coming to grips with mourning something is probably like a pet, or probably something that you had as a child. Like maybe, I mean, not necessarily a dog, but I feel like a lot of times those are what people talk about the most: the loss of the dog or the loss of a close family pet. And kind of your first instance of, I mean, if you're lucky, you know, if you're fortunate, your first instance of having to mourn, and your first instance of having to grieve for something that you thought was family, that you thought was something so important to us. And even with that last dog trailing away, that last dog on its way towards that more barren wasteland, those clouds fading away and getting darker, the flowers being stripped off of the tree on the left, all that. Yeah, I didn't even see that. And even the use of the reds too, the increasing use of the reds on the left. Yeah, that's an incredible take. I'm really glad you said that. I totally see it.
I have to say, I really like how the shading like helps, like how like the shading is used in these, well, in all those Stephanie's pieces. There's some, I think I saw this back on like the PowerPoint section, but like the sheen is not, but like the sheen seems to also help shape the individual objects. Like it gives like how the vase that the tea roses are in, the shades, the different shades help give that vase form. Yeah, the shading helps give the overall shapes form, and it helps support the other colors. And we've seen like the pomegranates and like the few pieces before it.
Yeah, I think the use of shading and the use of dark and light imagery and the use of shadow specifically in Stephanie's work is very, very, very significant. I think it's very interesting to see, and I think it's done beautifully in every single piece. I mean, I would have paused on every single piece if I had more to say other than I think this is really pretty. Every time I'm like, this is amazing, this is amazing, this is amazing. Like, I don't want to pause and waste everyone's time. I mean, but it's so hyper realistic, and then she uses the shadows and the way that she plays with light in her pieces. It just draws your focus straight to it, draws the focal point straight. It feels like these simple these like the tea roses, the pomegranate. It feels like they're sources of light in these scenarios, rather than like, it almost doesn't feel like they're being shined upon, but that they're actually like emanating. I really like that feeling. I don't know. I feel like it draws the eye towards them, and it makes you notice how well articulated they are, how beautiful these things really are, and how she's really portrayed them to be.
Yeah, I really like with her work. It's obvious there's obviously like influences of like, classic like Dutch still life, and like especially with the pomegranates, like Memento Mori. And I think with the flowers, one of the things that's really interesting to me is how she approaches these pieces in a similar way as she approaches her subjects, and almost paints these objects as if they're portraits. Like you usually would see kind of like a lot of different flowers and, all of these things kind of grouped all together, but instead she really approaches them each individually and really kind of pulls out all of the drama she can from these objects, or even like the close-ups of the flowers. So to me, I think it's really interesting because it's something that I really haven't seen before in a way to approach still life, even though it's still so kind of traditionally based.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I was looking at the pomegranate again.
I think they're timeless. And I think that's the beauty behind them, is that you can't put them in a specific time frame or warp, and they're elegant, timeless, elegant paintings.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Definitely agree. There's definitely a sense of permanence here with each of the pieces.
point out I love this last moment in the video where he overlays the two figures. I think one of the things that I think is very successful in his work is the way that he kind of layers figures and almost like abstracts them just by using the like shadows and by layering them in such a way that kind of makes them into new shapes and new forms that are just really intriguing to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I love this piece. I love this video. I don't have any idea what it means, but it is just it's stunning to me. It's really well articulated. It's really beautiful. The scene, the setting in the beginning just completely changes when it transitions to the two people just floating aimlessly in like the void. In space, is it just like nothingness? I have no idea. I mean, they're propping into each other, so you don't have to take it as something hyper realistic. It could be just literally emptiness. It could be just literally nothing, and they're just two people floating amongst it. And I really love that the way this is. And it sucks that like I'm sure Zoom is ruining the quality a bit for everyone, but it's really a beautiful piece that he's done here. And if you guys want to check it out on the art steps, then feel free to do so afterwards. Try to get everything updated and posted by tonight for that purpose.
You can also find his works on YouTube as well. And so you can go through and watch the pieces that he submitted here. And there's also some other ones. And he kind of plays with a lot of the same similar themes and forms. So I think it's really interesting to kind of watch as he like builds them onto each other.
Yeah, that's what I love about his work is like the overlays. I wish he was kind of on the call though, because as a video editor, I would love to know his like process in making these, and also someone who just does video production as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've actually seen some of these. I have checked out some of Youngson's videos like this. I checked it out on YouTube, and yeah, I did like it. Yeah, I think I did like this one more, because of like all the elements that seemed like digital or technological at the beginning parts of the video, but then like these figures that are just floating in the void. I don't know, like I know that they are figures, but I'm really stumped on what they're supposed to depict. But it almost seems like deliberately, it was presented as deliberately vague. And although I want to like put attention to that visible and invisible video. Yeah, I almost thought that I'm not sure what how the I think how what the theme is supposed to what's presented here, how it's supposed to relate to the title. But again, the title may not be related at all as far as I know. But I think it's the way I think it fits is like how there's two different parts of footage where it just dissolves into each other.
Yeah.
And maybe that could be seen as that those figures becoming invisible, and then another set of figures becoming visible right there and then. That's the best way I can interpret it.
Yeah, I think
you're right.
Yeah, his work kind of reminds me a lot of just different performances, like performance art, specifically like I don't know if this piece is in the show. There is one of his works, something Xbox, I think. It reminds me a lot of Marina Abramovic's, some of her performances. And so I think what I would be really interesting to hear about is, if these were performances that were recorded, or like the first one, Trauma, you can see that they're kind of standing in front of the screen, whereas there's works like this that definitely seem more of like a post-production thing. And so I think that you know, the fact that that work is seen as so obviously post-production, whereas ones like this maybe are a little bit more of an event or something. I think that that could maybe speak to what you were saying, Joshua, that it's about kind of the process of it as well.
Yeah, that's definitely, I'll definitely have to consider. I'll definitely consider that if I ever decide to look at it too, and to look back at his work again.
You know, the series that Park Jungun is working on here with the title Tame Monsters, I kind of really like the concept he's going for here about like kind of vehicles being or at least that's how I take it, as to be like the tame monsters. Like the early design here being like when you tame the monster for transportation, versus like now the tame monsters are bicycles and cars and other ways to travel. It's like there's this monstrous capability that we have as human beings too, as a further point to make on this. That's being reined in, and it's being brought to a new level by just the creation of a bike is a wholly different thing than anything we were ever used to before. And then the creation of the motor vehicle was a wholly different thing than anyone's ever seen before. You know, locomotives, everything like that. I think it's definitely an apt title to be called the Tame Monster. And I think juxtaposed with the sculpture he did here, and unfortunately we didn't 3D model any of it, but we used these pedestals to kind of delineate which ones were these sculpture pieces and not, given the works that we were submitted. And yeah, that's the literal tamed monster right there, and then kind of a more figurative tamed monster in the pieces beforehand. I think it's just very interesting, and as a concept to make a collection on, I do really like the idea of it.
I really like the concept alone is very interesting. Like choosing to depict vehicles as these sort of creatures, creatures that people are riding on. Whereas like I do see like how this sculpture kind of juxtaposes itself as more explicit with its design, whereas the one before it, which I think the major figure is still supposed to be the car, is more of a subtle presentation, with it more resembling more like a standard car.
Yeah, I feel like he kind of, in the way that he shows you just explicitly tamed monster to like, oh, tame monster is the piece afterwards. I think there's kind of this progression between the two pieces that's kind of interesting. I mean, you look at the similar color traits between the two as well, the car and the sculpture itself, and you think about historically what we were doing before cars and bikes and everything. We were riding horseback, we were riding other animals, elephants, this, that, and the third. And I think that's very interesting as a concept. It's something I'd love to hear about, and something that I'd love to look into as historical fact, and just articulate it in this way with just two pieces side by side, literal tamed monster and then the figurative beast. I really love that idea. I really do, as a collection. I really do enjoy that idea.
Yeah, I didn't think that it could correlate back to like the history of to like the type of modes of transportation we used from earlier in history. Like, yeah, we rode on horseback before the invention of vehicles, and even before that, there was like horse-drawn carriages, and even like trolleys. So yeah, that's an interesting point to how it like ties back into that.
Yeah, he
Sort
could have done like 7 pieces and had a trolley in one, a horseback carriage in the other, and he could have just called it Tame Monsters 1905, Tame Monsters 1805, Tame Monsters 1705. I really enjoy that. And maybe the passage of time, in a sense, is not what he was trying to, facilitate through these works, and we're just taking it in our own heads. But either way, I think it's a really interesting idea for a collection, and the way he's done it is beautifully articulated, beautifully well done. I wish I could see the piece in person, the one sculpture here by him. Unfortunately, we live in a pandemic, so isn't so. But it really is a beautiful piece. I really enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I think of the displayed sculptures by Seema Singh Dua that we have for the exhibition here today and on display virtually at Art Steps and on their way to the gallery now. I really like this piece within piece. I really do. I really think one, the way that it's articulated, that like it's kind of understood that she is not only at peace, but that she is just actively affecting the environment in doing so. That she's so content that she is actually causing the color to wash off the place around her, and then behind her is this beautiful scene of like I don't need like the rising sun, the forest, just nature, foliage, everything. It just feels very organic, and it feels very much like she's what is the word I'm like purifying or cleansing the setting around her in just with the way that she feels about like herself, just in coming to grips with this piece within. And this I feel like it almost touches on maybe the concepts of nirvana or revelations and things like that, but just showing the external circumstance and the external force that an internal conversation with yourself can bring is really incredibly articulated in this piece. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, I definitely see the theme of peace, how the title and theme of it is communicated rather effectively. Like the bright colors that are around her do give up a peaceful glow and shine, and the elements of like the structure around it almost seem like it could be like interpreted as like a form of darkness, and the peaceful, and her being at peace, it's her shutting out that shutting out that darkness, like the darkness is being ripped apart by that peaceful light.
Yeah, definitely. That's all we have for you guys. If you guys like to go back and talk about any of the other pieces, I'm more than willing to do so. Rewind it up. If you have anything you thought of overhand or over the course of going through the other pieces, if you'd like to ruminate on these pieces individually at length by yourself, either virtually from the comfort of your own home, you can do so on the Art Steps. We'll push these updates that we were talking about throughout the presentation, and we'll put it on our website as well. or come join us physically at the gallery at 108 Church Street down in New Brunswick and come see it for yourself firsthand. Say hi, wear a mask though. But that's yeah. But yeah, if there's anything else anyone would like to say.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. And I am sorry about the mistitled. That's fully on me. That's fully on me.
Absolutely. That's minor. Having done a lot of shows and working with curators, I've seen a lot worse. Believe me, a lot worse.
Good. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Take it as a compliment. Not bad at all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you to all the artists that joined us. I know a lot of them, they're busy people. They had to leave in the middle of the call, but to those that are still with us and to those that got to talk about their pieces and those who just submitted, even those who didn't show up during the call, thank you. Very appreciative of you all coming out, showing your support, choosing to display with us several times over. Patricia, Ogunlesi, everyone, Allison, Lewis, Stephanie, Deshpande, you guys, Paul Fuentes, everyone, you guys are amazing. I'm glad that you guys are presenting your pieces with us all the time. I'm glad that you guys keep coming back. And I hope that you feel that these exhibitions and these receptions are getting better as I do, because I really do believe that. I think that we're doing an incredible job with the way that we're adapting here. And I just love that we can spread this artistic expression in different ways than we were before, in a time where it looked like we might not be able to do so anymore. I think it's just a really great experience. I love being able to talk to all the artists about the pieces that they made, their motivations, what went into them, and what they really got out of it. And I love seeing the difference in reaction to the artists when they see other people's perspective. They see what maybe they didn't consider beforehand, what maybe they'll consider moving forward, what they might have seen as their own. I mean, we had a few artists here talking about what they saw as their own personal flaws. And when it came to it, the audience was like, I actually love this. I love that they did this. I love that they went with like this similar color palette. We look at Deirdre Shan, I believe, is one of the examples that coming to my mind immediately. We love the muted colors, the choices, the similar in motif and theme in her pieces. And she comes in and she's like, actually, like that was something I was trying to break the mold of. And we're like, oh, we just sat here complimenting it for 20 minutes. Like, okay. So I think it's really interesting to see the different reactions and responses we can get from people. And the thing like art, I think the subjectivity in art is what makes me love it so much. And I'm glad that all of you guys love it too. With that being said,
Jordan.
Yeah.
This is Grina.
Hey.
And at the end, I would like to express my thanks to the artist. Thank you so much. We're really honored to have you at this time. And thank you for setting this amazing exhibition. And my very, very special thanks to my interns that I believe you made it happen, all of this. So thank you so much.
Happy to help. Thank you as well.
I'm honored to have the artists and the interns working with us. Thank you.
Yeah, with that said, I think we're coming to a close. Again, you guys can see these pieces in person from the safety of your own home, or if you want to come down to the gallery and say hi, you can do so at 108 Church Street in New Brunswick. We'll be happy to welcome you. With that, I'll bring it to a close and I'll end the call. Thank you everyone again. I look forward to the next one.